FOG number 183 is Corey Oates. Corey played 9 Origin games for Queensland after making his debut in 2016. Corey was born in Biloela but raised in Biloela and attended boarding school at St Brendan's College in Yeppoon. A keen cricketer, Corey was forced to decide between his love of cricket or a potential career in Rugby League. The rest, they say, is history. Corey made his first grade debut with the Broncos in 2013 after being named in the National Youth Competition's Team of the Year the previous season while playing in the second row. In a stellar career, Corey played over 200 games for Brisbane and was the club's leading try scorer on 4 occasions. Corey Oates announced his retirement at the end of 2024. Well, Corey Oates, thanks very much for your time. What does it mean to you to be a FOG?
Oh, geez. To be honest, growing up where I grew up, you never think it's a possibility to actually even have that next to your name. So it's an honour, to be honest, to put it pretty simple. Growing up and, where I was, Jason Etherington, you just sort of knew him as, Jason Etherington. You muck around, play footy. You just know his family and that, but you'd never think about, ever playing and going to that level of football, especially when you're just doing it for fun, and even in high school, I never thought I'd ever be here. And then, as they go on and on and on, even still to the day when I got picked, and I guess it probably explains, when you're playing good footy, it's how it feels, but I never thought I was any chance or in contention ever. I just thought I was just trying to play footy and do my job for the team. And it's honestly, it's a pinch myself moment with the team I got to play with. To have that next to my name, the FOG, brand, I guess you can call it. To be honest, it's an honour and something that I will cherish.
Take us back to the young boy growing up in Biloela. You're born in Biloela, but Biloela as a young kid, that's where you developed, I suppose, your life skills. So what was it like growing up in country Queensland?
My life skills, wow. It was awesome. I'd never change it for anything. Growing up on a big farm, big, cattle farm, everything was there. You never wanted to go anywhere else. Nothing else really mattered in the world except for playing sport and getting home from school and just disappearing until dinner time. And the memories are just endless at that place. While you injured yourself probably most weeks, fell off bikes, tried to do silly jumps and you end up in a fence or, fight your brother, because you're playing one-on-one backyard footy and fall for a dummy and you get up him for throwing it. Those memories, there's so many of them. It was just the funnest time of my life. As a kid, I wish it just never ended. When I remember all the fun stuff that we, could do back then, and I definitely am so grateful that it sort of shaped me today. While I was the youngest of 3, I used to get everything. Never used to get in trouble. Used to always get to blame it on everyone else. But growing up on the farm was, just one of the coolest things ever, possible. And I never would think I'd remember so much, but all my memories that I really have growing up are all at that farm, even though I left when I was only 10 years old.
And what are the memories then of playing footy as a kid in country Queensland?
Yeah, it was just fun. Like I said, the small community that we had, in central Queensland, all the small country towns around there, we all played against each other every weekend. I think there might have been 6 different, the towns all up, and you'd play a different one each week. And I think you'd start about 8:30, I believe, and play till mid-afternoon. You'd play probably 4 or 5 games during that day, and played more because some teams never had enough players, so you'd just throw on their jerseys and play against the team you just played against. But that was what it was. No one really cared about who you played for. You just loved playing footy, and it was just so fun. you couldn't wait to get back out on the park. Like I said, we never had boots. We never played in shoes. You just barefoot. Tape the balls of the feet up so you didn't get bindies or big scratches on the bottom of your feet, and just run.
Then, as you got older, you ended up at boarding school in your Poons, St Brennan's. How did that come about?
Well, it was funny. I'd like in that time, and this is what I say. Growing up on the farm, you just didn't think about anything else. I had no idea my dad went to boarding school. He went to St Brennan's. I had no idea until the day that I dropped my brother there for his first day, and then I found out Dad went, my uncles went. I think they were school captains also when they were there, and then a lot of the fathers that were the fathers of people I grew up playing footy against, they all went there too, and I had just no idea. And I remember rocking up and it had its own agriculture, like farm, cattle, had like 5 footy fields, cricket nets, cricket fields, tennis courts, I had everything. And Mum tells me the story, all the time. Leaving, as soon as we left, I said to Mum, when can I go? When can I go board at that school? And 2 years later, I ended up going there, and footy just took off. And I never thought it would. I always say to people now, I love cricket. I used to love playing cricket. I used to love playing cricket a lot. Every weekend there was something to do. Club footy, club, and then school football. But then you played club cricket, school cricket. I used to play tennis a bit, but I gave that up pretty quick. I didn't like running too much.
What'd you feel in the slips, did you?
No, a bit everywhere. Whenever everyone get over my banter and trying to sledge people, they'd throw me out in the boundary. But I loved it wherever. I used to feel anywhere. I used to feel silly mid, and used to get smacked all the time. But the batsman would hate he'd hate me after it. But that was the plan. I loved everything. I'd slogger, going in the bat. First ball, I'd try and smack for 6 every time.
So when did the footy take over? When did that start becoming serious?
I had to make a choice. The Bronx forced me to choose, and the grade 11. Because when you look at all the school football you played, because I never made many rep teams growing up when I was 13 and 14. Well, I don't remember making many. But the older I got, 15, 16, you started making a few reps. And if you think about all the football, I think you're playing like 60 games of football, a year, during the year. I think they were 70-minute games or 60-minute games, and that's a lot of sport in itself. But then I was playing cricket every time that finished. It's actually a funny story. I used to play against Cameron Munster. Him and I grew up playing footy with each other in club, against in school, but then cricket both. So the same thing. We played with each other in club and against each other in school. And he used to always get me out, the little prick. But grade 11, they made me choose. They signed me on those little deals back then where you used to get product and shoes, and they said, mate, you got to make a decision. And it was hard. It was really hard because I still love cricket so much. But
so why then? Because you seem to be just enjoying life, and cricket was, it sounds like, maybe rung above in the enjoyment factor. What was the pivotal moment that made you decide to follow that rugby league path? Well,
it was the only thing I had going for me at the time. Back when I was in school, there wasn't much cricket. I was going away to rep stuff, but I wasn't making anything past. I was never really getting picked in the Queensland teams, or I wasn't that level just. Apparently I was close a few times, but there wasn't many 2020 comps and all that back then. So, I really didn't. It was a hard decision for me because I just loved the sport so much. But I guess what offers were on the table, the only one was rugby league. So, and I had 2 surgeries at the time. So they said, look, we're not doing these surgeries unless you put all your effort into us. So look, at the end of the day, it was easy, but it was just hard because of my passion for cricket, obviously. But it's actually a funny story about how I actually got even in the Broncos squad. I wasn't meant to be in it. Harry Grant's old man is part of the reason why I'm in it. They used to do like tours back then in schools, and they used to do training days, and then they'd pick their development squad for that sort of area from a couple from those sessions, and I never got picked. Well, I don't remember getting picked. And I remember walking home after school, and Harry Grant's old man, Paulie, he used to drive the bus. He used to just help out the school. You know, he wasn't paid for it. He just loved helping out and, you know, giving kids the chance to go to places. So he'd always drive buses to trainings, to football games, and he was driving that bus for the club. And I was walking past, and he said, "Oi, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Going back to the dorm." He said, "Oi, no, you're on this bus." I said, "No, I'm not. I didn't. My name didn't get called out." He said, "Go get your boots, and you got 5 minutes to get back on the bus." And I hopped on and got there, and he just said, "Off you go." And they were like, "Who's this kid?" He said, "He just put his name down," and that's where it went.
So that was the start.
That was the start, yeah. That was the only reason I sort of was in those developments, junior things back then, yeah.
Well, you played for the Capras in the Q Cup and ended up in Brisbane with the Broncos, obviously, over 200 games. So take us on that path, how you've gone from boarding school at St Brendan's to the Capras to Brisbane.
Yeah, well, I moved to Brizzy straight after, 3 days after school. I was over schoolies, I didn't like schoolies. 3 days of it, I was bored, so I caught the train back. And then I had my ankle at the time, so I was just coming off my ankle surgery. So I remember doing rehab for the first few months of that and working in the 20s. And, you know, doing the pre-season, it was hard. You know, and this is where I say I love cricket. I wasn't a big fan of training back then. I still not much now, but, you know, but I wasn't a big runner. I hated running. You know, I was short distance. You know, I wasn't a big long distance runner. And, you know, that was the hardest part with league, was your long distance and your fitness and running all the time. I just didn't like it. And, you know, I remember the first pre-season I actually quit. I was done. I told them I'm done. 20s, you know, I just couldn't do it. And they were like, "Oh, no, look, you should probably just give it a go. Just, you know, try a bit harder and push through it." But, yeah, I just couldn't do it. And then I remember toward the end of that pre-season, Australia Day, the older boys conned me into having a party at the house I was at, and I had a few drinks. I went to sleep. Things got a bit wild, and I ended up getting dropped from the club and almost contract ripped up before it even started, my whole career. And I ended up having to go back playing the 20s Cup. Well, I can't remember what it was back then.
The
Colts.
NIC, yeah.
Colts. Well, was it Colts?
The under 20s?
Under 20s Colts.
Yeah.
I remember playing that that year, and then I was lucky enough to get a shot in 20s for the Bronx for the end, from probably middle to the end of that year, and then somehow ended up getting signed for my first grade contract. I had a couple of surgeries at the end of the year, and my first few games were playing Cup with Capras the following year, which was 13, and you know, it was a massive just turnaround from almost having my contract ripped up to having my first grade pre-season. You know, honestly, it was tough again. It was hard. I didn't want to do it. I'm almost certain I'd almost told them I'm done again. Like, it was some of the hardest times of my life.
What got you through?
I just never sort of wanted to give up. Not like letting people down, I guess. That's probably the one thing I just couldn't do. You know, the amount of effort your parents put in as a kid. You know, all that time spent in cars, you know, all the money spent on trips, you know, just all of that. And then, you know, it's sort of growing up trying to be, you know, like my old man. So it's, you know, he was that guy that nothing was ever too hard. Nothing's ever too hard for him. And I think that was probably part of the reason why I always kept going back. You know, you ask so many, I struggled. Fitness was just so hard for me. I just hated it. I just couldn't do it. You know, but playing footy was probably easy, you know, natural. You know, from a young kid, all I remember was just running dead straight, just as hard as possible. And that was one thing that Dad probably instilled. Just every game I played, it was like, you can probably run a bit harder, mate. You know, that was it. You know, and I grew up just ended up loving the contact and the physicality. You know, some bloke could, if he hit me, I'd I'd spend the next 70, 80 minutes trying to find that bloke to get whack him back. I just loved it. I just loved every part of it, but the training.
It's a big thing though when you say grade 11 you were told you had to make a choice. Literally 3 or 4 years later you're making your NRL debut.
Yeah.
You're still a very young country boy, is it fair to say? It's a massive, step up for you, and you've just alluded to the fact and mentioned and highlighted how difficult it was. Could easily have turned around and gone home and maybe wanted to. Was that 2013, that taste of the NRL, that pivotal moment for you?
Yeah. Well, it's funny, the story about all that. I was, back row, training back row, centre. But it was, for first grade, they were training me back row, lock, middle, that was the position I was training at for the pre-seasons and, during the season while I wasn't playing, but I was still playing Q Cup. I was playing back row for Capras. But then if, someone gets injured, I just used to go to centre for the game. They'd always have a spare, back row or, guy that could fill in. So I remember my debut game against Melbourne. I was meant to debut the week before against Warriors. So Alice Glenn was sick. And I was almost playing the night before. So the day before, during that week, they said, just be prepared. He's pretty crook. He may not play. And I remember just bricks because that Warriors team, I'm pretty certain I remember they were huge. Like, they were big boys. And the night before, they said, oh, no, I think he's going to be okay. You can play 20s. And then we played 20s as Sunday, I think. Or the Warriors a Sunday night. And then flew to Melbourne, and they said, oh, you're flying with us. Just get the experience with the first grade team. When usually I'd just go with the 20s. And then the night before, they told me I was debuting that next night against Melbourne. I'm like, it's just like, holy And I was off the bench prop. I was meant to come in the middle or back row or, for 10 or 15 minutes, whatever. And Jack Reed ended up popping his shoulder out, I think 15 minutes in. And I ended up playing 60-odd minutes against Will Chambers, in the centres at the time. And I tell you what, it was a welcome to NRL. I remember he hit me and he said, welcome to NRL, but in the way that Will would say it, Yeah. And that was just a moment where I was just so happy to be out there playing against all the best players in the game. And we got beaten 28-8, but I didn't care. I was still the happiest kid in the world. And I played another game the next week at centre, and then my wing career started that following week against the Cowboys when Hook grabbed me and said, oh, mate, you're playing wing. He said, you'll be right. I said, mate, I've never played wing in my life. Not once. Never trained. Not once did I ever play or think about playing wing. He goes, oh, you'll be right. And he said, he just threw me on the wing. And that was sort of the start of my wing career. The next year I didn't really play a lot of it, but I remember when Wayne come, he said to me, he said, you're doing a better job than some of the wingers we got. He said, I'm just going to stick you there and we'll see how you go. And he said, you can do what you want with it, but I think you're our best winger.
Might be a hard question to answer then. If you hadn't been moved to the wing by Anthony Griffin, do you reckon you'd be sitting here now talking about your Origin career, your career over 200 NRL games?
Yeah.
Is that the moment that moving to the wing, defines your career?
Well, yeah, and this is where I think, all the people that helped me, whether Hook wanted me to play there or not, he still gave me my first opportunity. He put me on the wing, and showed me what I can do out there when I never had any idea of what I would be as a winger, I guess. The following year, I still played off the bench, back row, lock, centre, back up, wing. I was back up just for every position. And it wasn't until Wayne came and he said, mate, look, it's really handy having a guy that can fill so many positions, but for yourself long term, it can not be great. He said you can just be that guy back up for everyone. And I remember the time we lost a fair few of our wingers start of the year in 15, and I was off the bench, and I was always end up on the wing, for 20, 30, 60 minutes. And, I used to do a pretty decent job, but that was just me. I never wanted to let anyone down. Whenever I had my opportunity, I just wanted to do my job and just go 100 mile an hour. That was just me. That was all I knew. And, if Wayne didn't give me that advice, and he said in life you just got to take your opportunities. He said because you may not get another one, and he just said it's up to you what you do with it. And, you know, if I never probably had that conversation, or he never gave me that opportunity, you know, who knows? You know, I probably still could have been that guy trying to be on the back row.
A couple of years later, you're playing Origin. You mentioned earlier that you never even thought you were a chance. So what was it like in 2016 when you found out you were going to represent Queensland?
Oh, it was scary. I remember Wayne's advice was actually don't talk. When he found out I was getting picked, he rang me. He said, like, you know, he was great. He said, you know, you deserve it. And but I'll give you one piece of advice: do not talk. And I didn't for the first camp. But no, I couldn't believe it. I told my dog. My dog was the first one that found out that I got picked because I had no one else. You know, I was living on my own at the time. I had my dog and me, so that was it. But yeah, I actually couldn't believe it. I still sometimes think, you know, how, like, you know, why, you know. But that was, I guess, goes back to the advice Wayne gave me, and you know, it's just what you do with it. You can, you know, because I always said I feel like I can do more in the back row and change the game. But he said, well, why don't you just try it on the wing? And that was just everything. That's just what I started trying to do, I guess. And you know, I just took everything I did from the back row. I just tried to do on the wing. You know, run harder. You know, and just do my job and not sort of let anyone down. And to be picked in that team, I still sort of can't believe it today, because when I look at the team, you know, it was still a part of the greatest era of, you know, Origin. Those players, you know, Gio was my centre. You know, you had Cronk and Thurston. You know, Hodge was the other centre. I think Gillo, Guerra with a back row, Corey Parker, lock, Smithy hooker. Yeah, I think Jacob Lillyman, Nate Miles. You know.
So what was it like then walking to camp and realising you're going to be playing with these blokes?
Wow, I was so scared. Oh, just because I grew up idolising, just watching so many of them and just going, you know, they're incredible. And then I'm like, well, how am I here? Like, you know, I'm just a basic up and down player. You know, just run hard and try and tackle hard and just try and do my job. I never thought I'd do flashy stuff. I just try to do my job better than everyone else. Like, you know, my position, that was just my thing. And look, and Wayne's advice is probably the best advice I ever gotten, was don't talk. You know, because you know, I just learnt so much. And it's funny because the second camp, apparently after it, I can't remember who said it. They go, I thought this bloke was quiet. But yeah, it was just, and everything I learnt in those camps is just incredible. Like, you know, some of those players are the best players in the game for a reason. Like, they always did more. You know, they always made sure they did it perfect. You know, because if you didn't do it perfect at training, then you're not going to probably do it in the game. You know, like, it's just, you know, the way how much they practice everything that they do, and you wonder why they pull it off in games. Is because, you know, they put the practice, they put the effort in. You know, there's a reason why they're always so good. And to be honest, to have that photo, you know, and that jersey in my bar at home is just one of the greatest things ever. I still get people coming over now, my mates, going, how did you get in that team?
What are the memories of the game?
Reno, the little split my head. He split my head. Yeah, my first ever carry in Origin, the little. And I keep saying it's because he was chicken. He split me from behind. Yeah, I remember that, and I loved it. You know, I loved it. I thought it was cool. I'm like, this is mad. Like, this is Origin. No, this is so cool. I just remember every time I carried the ball, if I didn't run as hard as I possibly could, I was just getting absolutely smacked. I remember late in the game, JT, I think Darves might have taken a carry off a kick, and I was just, back then I was a bit heavier. So I was about 106 kilo, I think 107. So I wasn't as fit back into the games as what I was later in my career. I remember barely being able to breathe at about 10 minutes to go, and I just remember dawdling back, and you know, JT just yelling at me and said, get here and do your effing job. And then I went, oh yeah, right, I know. I was like, as soon as he said that, I just found energy. I don't know how, and I just ran the ball and, you know, done my job, got up, played, and he smacked me in the ass and went, good carry. And I'm like, oh yeah, sweet, thanks man. Like, it's mad. Like, you know, I just remember those small moments of the game, but and still now I'm just like, you know, I was 21. You know, I'm playing with the greatest players in the game ever. You know, I still remember what I was feeling at the time as that young kid, and you know, it was just something I just could never dream of. And yeah, it's something I'm very, very proud of that I, you know, got to experience.
Did it make you a better player when you went back to the Bronx?
Yeah, it just sort of it made me understand, you know, what it took to become that player, and you know, and it just everything that I'd learned over my career and playing Origin and playing against guys and with players that are the best in the game, and you know, it's just watching them and then listening to certain people like Wayne, those, you know, it all just started coming to me why he was trying to say it, and that he, you know, what he says is actually, you know, what it takes to become a great player. Like, you know, I remember Wayne saying, he said, you're not a great player unless you play through pain. You know, not as saying you need to play through a broken arm, but just, it doesn't matter if you're sore, if you can still run and tackle, you'll be fine. And like, I remember after game 3, I played, and you know, not all of them did, and Wayne said, I want you to play after the third Origin, or second, one of them, and I remember playing against the Dogs, I think, and after it he said, mate, it's one of the best games of footy you've ever played in your career, and he said if you didn't play, we wouldn't have won. And that just sort of stuck with me, and ever since sort of that, I've just always tried to do extras, you know, do extra stuff so that in a game you don't have to think about, you know, why you didn't catch that ball, or, you know, what do I need to do, because if you do it all, you're not second guessing yourself.
So getting the opportunity to play for the first time is one thing, being able to play again is another. And to look back on a career where you played for Queensland on numerous occasions, 9 games for Queensland, what was it like being selected again and then being able to look back and play 9 games, not just the one?
Yeah, well, the story in the first game, first camp I ever had, because I wasn't a very good passer out of dummy half. I never had to do it in my career. So playing back row most of my sort of teen years, I've never had to go to back row. I mean, hooker much. So I knew I couldn't pass left to right. So then when I got thrown in the left wing, I'm like, oh no, like, if I'm going to have to pass, it's going to be shit. Like, I was terrible. And I remember at training, GI had to, you know, they made a tackle or whatever, and I had to go. They're like, you know, go to hook and get past. And Smithy was like 10 metres away. I was like, come closer. And he just said, throw me the ball. So I threw it, and it grubbled on the ground. And he picks it up, throws it, and says, learn how to pass, otherwise you're not coming back. Next, like, you won't be in game 2. Holy And I remember Alfie seen it, and for the next 2 years after every session, me and Alf would be practicing left to right pass. And and then that's when I never took anything for granted. You know, I never thought I deserved to be picked ever. I just always, you know, if I played in between, I'd always want to make sure that I played my best games. And you know, I never ever thought I was picked until, you know, I got told, you know, or, you know, I was like, oh, you know, am I playing? And I think Scotty Sizz was still there at the time at the Bronx. And he was like, yeah, like you picked. He said, you won. I said, oh yeah, no, but I just didn't know, you know. I wasn't sure if they still wanted me to play on the wing. And it was just everything about them. The camps, just the week, the 10 days you get to spend together is just so fun. You know, the games are the hardest games ever. I don't care what people say, but I've never played for Australia or anything. But you know, Origin games to me, I've never had an easy game. I've never played a game where I, thought someone didn't try and take my head off. But I just loved it. Every time I got the opportunity to put the jersey on, I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And to be playing with the guys in that team, I said after that series, I don't care what happens for the rest of my career. That's the greatest thing that could ever happen.
To get the last chance in 2022, again, when potentially you might have thought you wouldn't get another crack, that would have even been more different, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I really didn't think I was going to be picked, trust me. And obviously, COVID, I think, those times were a bit weird. But because, I had probably a 12 to 18 month low in my game, where big things were being said and stuff was happening. My game wasn't really going anywhere. So I actually thought my career was over. I think a couple of years before that. I was almost about to call it quits. I just had enough. I couldn't handle it. Parts of my body were aching, and I just didn't know how to stop it and why. And even when I did that, I still, even after I sort of trained and got back and feeling good about myself, even in 21, I thought I was playing okay, but I didn't think I could get back to playing representative or football that was going to put me in those conversations or in the top 5, 6, wingers of the game. I never thought I could get back. And 22 year, I suppose for me was probably one of the best, just because I've never felt so good in my life playing footy. I did so much to look after my body and mentally just get fitter, stronger, smarter with the way I played the game. Because you're getting older. I wasn't old, but you got to get a bit smarter when you get a bit older. You probably can't just keep running dead straight into props. It's not going to help me. And I just sort of, I didn't change anything. I went back to doing what worked for me, and that was just running hard, but just not straight at people. It's probably in between people. And that was also advice from Steve Bretherton, the South Q Cup coach. He helped me. He actually almost helped me from quitting. I was done when I was back at South. He actually said to me, "What are you doing?" I said, "Mate, I'm just done. I'm playing footy." He said, "Mate, we don't want you here." He said, "Not in a bad way." He said, we want you to play because he said we're a better team with you, but you don't deserve to be here. You deserve to be in that team." And I couldn't thank them more. He just said, "Mate, you're a winger," and he said, "You're the best in the game at one stage," and he said, "Just get back to doing that. Don't change." He said, "Look at the greatest players. They didn't change. They were there. They were the same. They just evolved with the game. They never changed what they were good at. They just kept getting better, at their skill." And he said, "You don't need to change anything." And to be honest, I without that advice, I don't know where I would have been. Then Renault came in started 22, and I don't know, it's just another life. And I honestly, when I say I've never felt better, I never felt sore after any games ever. I just continually looked after my body, trained. I did all the stuff that I probably wasn't doing the 3 years prior, because I just thought the game was easy for me. And then when you stop doing one thing, you slowly stop doing others without even realising it. And 22, I was happy. I never even thought about Origin. Honestly, I think if you asked Tegan, I said to her, I'm done. And I'm fine with that. That's my fault. I said, that's my fault. I'll never give up trying, but I probably lost my chance because I was in, and then I just stopped playing good footy. So, and I was content. I was honestly just happy playing as best as football as I possibly could for the Bronx. And I remember being on the fence with my neighbour and having about 4 or 5 beers at the time. And Friday night, after a massive week of getting flogged, my phone started ringing, and it was about 6 o'clock, and it was Billy. And to this day, I'll never lie, I actually wasn't going to answer it because I was having some beers. I just wanted to keep it. I was going to ring him back the next day. And my neighbour said, you should probably answer that. And I answered, and Bill's like, yeah, you going, mate? Yeah, good. What are you doing? Oh, just having a beer or so with my neighbour. He said, oh, well, probably should put that beer down and come into camp. He said, you're probably going to be playing next Wednesday. And I went, oh, no. I'm like, I'm not really. He said, yeah. He said, mate, a few boys have fallen ill with COVID and, the results will come back later tonight, but it's not looking good. So, yeah, went from having that beer to quickly running into the house, telling T. She wouldn't even believe it either. But, yeah, she ended up having to drive me down to the coast with the kids in the car. I'd actually pick some snacks up for the boys because all the boys were in their rooms, so I picked a bag of snacks up for some of the boys in their rooms because they were starving. But, yeah, that quick week, Tommy Dearden played, and he was outstanding. But that game, I don't think it stopped. I don't remember that game stopping at all. I don't even think I realised we were up when Benny Hunt got that ball from that kick. I seriously thought we probably were down. I just don't remember looking at the clock or the scoreboard once. It was one of the hardest games ever. I don't know whether it was because I had 5 or 6 beers that Friday night before, but and that's what I mean. I was the fittest I'd ever been in my whole career, and I've never been that tired in my life in a game of football or let alone Origin. The 3 concussions at the start of that game were just unheard of. Well, 2 players down for most of the game. Tommy Gilbert played probably one of the games of his career in the back row. I think that was his debut. Tommy Dearden, kid, debuting, and I wasn't debuting, but I felt like I was again. It felt so good to be back, and that honestly, I thought, my career was coming back in the Origin arena, but unfortunately after that game it wasn't meant to be. But that game was still probably one of the most fatiguing in my life. But yeah, it's probably one that I'll cherish for a long time, being picked in.
As we sit here today having a chat, in the off-season you've hung up the boots, decided to retire. How difficult was that, or was it an easy decision? And how do you sit here now looking towards the future?
It was hard, but it was easy. It was hard to deal with how the last 2 years have gone. Like we just spoke about then, 22 being probably one of the best feeling years of my life, just with playing and how I felt, and how good I felt like I was playing, and how easy everything felt again. To then 1.5 games into 23, a broken jaw, and another two injuries during that year. Ended up probably being the worst year of my career. So I went from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows in space of 12 months, and that it didn't get me down or beat me up. It rocked me, to be honest. I just didn't know where to sort of go from there. But I thought I was done with the surgeries and the injuries just because of how much I was looking after my body and putting in, and just the effort I was putting in. I kind of felt like I didn't deserve it. With the amount of work I was doing. I think I had a week off for the 3 years in a row. I trained every week for the whole year. I didn't stop because I just didn't want to go back to not feeling good about football. And I just loved making it feel so easy. I just didn't want to stop. And that year really took a toll on just me. My body was just tired. I remember that, I think, after the 3rd one. So, I went broken jaw, tore my PCL 16 minutes into the Parramatta game after I come back. I didn't think I hurt my knee massively until the next day. So I had another 8 weeks off. Came back from that, played 3 games, and I still felt great. I thought I was still playing some of my best footy. And then just at training, my knee just went crack, and I cracked my meniscus and my cartilage at the same time, and had to get clean out, so another 6 to 8 weeks. And because I wanted to get back, and this is where I wish I was just more patient. Coming back probably 2 weeks early was probably the worst decision I made. It just ruined probably the next 12 months. But that was my decision, and I had to deal with it. And I didn't get picked into that year because I wasn't playing great. I wasn't feeling great, and I couldn't run because of that. And then the last 12 months, I probably knew I think I rang my manager in March this year. I remember coming back from Las Vegas, and we trained the next day, and I couldn't walk then for about a week. I just couldn't walk. It just hurt. I had to get needles. I had to get cortisones and fluid sucked out. Most months. Just to be able to run. I couldn't if I played around with my kids during the week, and you just enjoy life like I normally would, as in days off, get to go and spend some time playing golf. I couldn't do it. If I played golf, I couldn't play footy. On the weekends, my knee was just too beaten up. I couldn't really do a lot in the backyard with the kids, and it just made me think about future life, and it was an easy decision because of that.
And you landed on your feet pretty well, got yourself a job sorted already. So looking ahead, how excited are you? Yeah,
I'm so excited. I'm so thankful, and I wouldn't have got this opportunity if I didn't run into Kip coming home from Vegas on the plane. He was a bit hungover, I think, but I think 2 weeks later after that flight, I got a call from their producer, and spent the next year doing a day here and there with them. Well, mornings, just your general chat. And when they found out I was going to, hang the boots up, the producer said to me, "Well, if you're serious about this, I'm thinking about trying to get you a full-time gig here." And I thought it was no chance. I really did. Even my manager said he wasn't. I remember talking to him, and he's like, "Yeah, look, probably have a few things up your sleeve just in case, because you just never know. It's pretty hard." And I felt like I said to him, I said, "You're being a bit of a I'm like, you're not very confident in me." And then when it actually it was funny. We're in Tokyo on our family holiday, and they rang me. Well, George rang me and said, "Mate, you got a job." I said, "What?" He said, "Oh, on the radio." He said, "They just offered you a full-time job." And that's what I said. I was like, "You're being a bit of a I was off you." I said, "It's like you just didn't want me to have it." He said, "No, he said, "It's never happened before." He said, "I just thought it was just no chance." I said, "Well, why can you be honest with me?" He said, "Well, I didn't want to I didn't want you to have your hopes up and then I just ruin it." But I'm so thankful. And they say to me, it's you're the reason. But I just, with the fears and the pressure that all the players have when they retire, they just lifted a massive weight off my shoulders. It's funny because it was actually number one on my list that I always wanted to do. I didn't want to always be stuck in that football bubble where I was always just going to rely on the club. I never wanted that to be, what it was. And now with this, I can probably, there's a chance of, growing more and more, depending on how much I put in. But, I don't really go half-assed at stuff, and I'm really excited. It's, a lot of people that are close to me and have known me for a long time they understand how much I wanted this, and it's exciting times, and hopefully I've got it for a long time.
Who's had the biggest influence on your career?
Oh, there's so many people on the way. Wayne's always been one for me to ring, just with anything in life, not just football. He's been great. He probably changed me as a player and changed the way I went about training. Like I said, I hated it. I quit twice, and just the way that he'd go about things, and if I remember at army camp, he'd threaten me. He said, "If you talk," he's like, you're gonna cop it." He said, "So don't talk for the whole 3 days." Just those small things. I wish at the time I understood what he was doing, but I hated him. But I became a better person, more confident out of those, because he said, instead of spending your time whinging about how hard things are, just do it, because when you whinge about it, it's always going to be harder, and he honestly is probably the reason why I got that next step in my career, Wayne. So, he's one that has always been there. Gene helped me a lot through, I guess 16, 17, 18, and then when the grandkids come, he forgot about us. So, but no, he was great. He helped me keep things simple. Instead of worrying about trying to get picked, just play what your strengths are, and the rest will do it. The rest will do it for you. And growing up, I always idolised my dad, not because he was sporty, but just the sort of person he was. I always wanted to be like him. So, as a person, I guess being like my old man was probably one of the big things that I wanted to do. It was always nothing's ever, like I said, nothing's ever too hard, and it's always easy to do something for someone for nothing. Because if you do it, that means you want to do it, and then you care about them. And I just remember always going along to work jobs with him, and if it was a lady that just needed the stuff done, he'd never accept payment off her. And I just always remember those small things, and ever since that, I just always wanted to be like my dad, and help people out that needed it. And just whenever people talk about him, they just love him. So I want people to talk about me like that. So, but then like I said, there's so many people along the way, but everyone's helped me out in my career in so many ways than what they realise. But there's too many to thank. But they're the guys that probably changed my life a fair bit. Andrew G is one guy that I can thank for my career in general. He knows why. But there's, like I said, there's always the guys that have done more, but so many people have played a small part in me getting to where I am.
Well, Corey Oates, thanks for your time and congratulations on a wonderful career.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching this episode of the FOG's Queenslander podcast. If there's a FOG you want to hear from, leave a comment to let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos.